So we had this note card that was supposed to show...
And this is so perfect. So this was our outline of, you know, what we wanted to cover in this video. And that's sort of like life.
That's how it went.
Yes, this is like life, right? Life happens in between whatever it is you're trying to do. So this video, it's all about accessing consciousness through asking more questions.
What do you mean, Nikko, by accessing consciousness? For people who aren't familiar with that.
So, accessing consciousness in that when you ask a question, it is an invitation for more energy, more potential, more possibility. And the fun part is you don't actually have to you don't have to know the answer. And so accessing consciousness through asking questions, well, essentially that's what you're doing by asking the question. Is it's almost like, you know, you're asking the question and you don't really expect an answer to show up, but I like to imagine it as like the question is a satellite dish that is streaming in, streaming out, bringing things in, and then you're creating space through asking the question for this magic, this whatever you're wanting to show up in your life, versus assumptions, conclusions, opinions, statements that all define something.
Let me ask you a question, Nikko. When I state something with surety, what does that do to your experience?
It makes me believe that what you have to say is true because you sound sure of yourself, right?
What if I said something negative about you, though?
So,
what if I said, Nikko, you're a worthless person? You know, and I said it with a lot of authority, versus, you know, how is your heart doing? You know, what are you feeling? So what do statements do? And even sort of just any type of statement.
Any statement,
not like a negative one specifically.
It defines something. It sort of gives structure. It creates a certain reality. When you say, I am worthless, right? You're saying that about yourself, and you know what we create this reality, and that's the other big point is that you're asking questions. You create much more than you ever thought you could, because when you ask the question, it brings in, it's an invitation for more, and the statement is, like I said, it's like this cap.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that what Nikko said is really profound, and I think that this is funny, and I'm grateful that this happened, that the cacao that we're drinking spilled onto our outline, and I think that was sort of how our Facebook Live video went.
Yeah.
We came out here with our cell phones and tried to film this video. We were really excited. Hey, we're going to get a lot of people viewing us, and then the internet connection didn't work. And my cacao spilled all over this.
Perfect.
And Nikko said, you know, life still happens even when we don't want it to. And I think that that's the point of what we're trying to get across, is that life truly is a river, and it's a force, and it's a movement that goes. And when we pretend that we have all of our shit together, I think that we ignore the reality that's going on around us. And so we can choose to align with the river and say, this is moving, this is flowing, this is going on. Even though it is difficult for me, you know, versus saying, no, the river isn't flowing, you know, there is no flow in life, there is no movement.
Yeah.
To align with what is.
Yeah, so you jump in, you surrender to the flow.
Could I ask you how you surrender, Nikko?
That's the ultimate question, I feel like. Like, that's like it's such a good question. that I don't know that it has an answer, because I think that the surrender looks pretty messy, I think.
Would you describe what that means, like maybe in your life?
It means like showing up late to places. It means, you know, not that you, like, hey, you know, I told you that I was going to be to this place, but the circumstances just didn't allow it. Or on the other end of that, you know, you show up even when life happens.
When you are late,
Uh-huh.
right? When you get stuck in traffic, when you spill coffee all over your pants,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
you know, when your boyfriend calls you and breaks up with you right before you're supposed to give a presentation in class, right?
Yes.
But to show up and say, this is happening, this is real, this is life, and I accept it.
Yeah.
And as we accept what happens, as we accept that the river flows and that there is movement, then we can be still, and I think we can find peace, and we can be honest with ourselves.
Yeah, and I think the other amazing thing about asking questions is that it sort of shifts the conversation from, especially if you have two people, it shifts the conversation from everything that's outside of you and it brings it inside, which is, to me, an investment in yourself, in your own potential, and your own power. Because all of these things, it's in the future or it's in the past, or I want that, I could use this. You're misplacing your power.
Right.
So when you start to ask questions that come from inside, you start to get in touch with more of you and what's relevant and happening now, rather than
What should be happening.
yeah, or even in like I said, the past or the future.
Right. So I'm looking, and we're at about 9 minutes, and I know that people start to stop viewing at about the 10-minute mark. So I want to ask you this last question. What is the takeaway from all of this, Nikko? In maybe 30 seconds. What can people that are watching, what can they do now to ask questions, to be more present with life? What would you say in the next, we can see our timer there, in the next 45
here's a
seconds?
couple of my favorite questions, or several. Are you a belief thief? Is this mine? How could it get any better than this? What could be so good that I'm not allowing myself to see? And what are my capacities?
Yes.
My limits? How am I limiting myself?
Right. A question that I love to ask myself is, and other people, and so, you could ask this to yourself. A question that I love to ask other people is, what do you love most about being you? And that's a question that I learned from Cord Pack, who is an amazing person from Eden, Utah, LDS seminary and institute teacher. He always asks people, what do you love most about you? And so I think that is the ultimate invitation to express yourself without anyone's agenda. So if there's anything that we would have, you take away, if this makes sense to you, then awesome. Then watch the videos. And if it doesn't make sense to you, then don't watch our videos anymore.
Yes.
Because we want you to be you. There's no one like you, and there's no one in the world that can do what you can.
No one else can be you.
And you, right, and it will always and forever be impossible for you to be somebody else. So be you, and love it. And if it's difficult, and if you have to wade through a raging river to get to where you're at, that's okay. Forgive yourself. Take time. Be patient. Wade in uncertainty, and sometimes really being uncomfortable with ourselves and questioning, who we are. Asking questions to ourselves and to other people allows us to live in the moment and to experience, I think, the reality of being awake.
Yes.
So,
beautiful,
Nikko, it's been real. Thank you for this, and keep watching our videos. For the next 10 days, we're going to be doing a series of how to say yes to life, how to ask better questions, how to live with less ego, and how to love people more. So subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, on Instagram. We'll provide all of those links below. You can check out Nikko's website, thealternativeroute.com. We'll provide that in the...
Talk about cacao and its spiritual and shamanic uses and my work with it.
Right. And
life is... It's messy, but have fun. Go for the ride.
And be okay with those messy moments.
Yep.
All right, much love, y'all. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.